Welcome viewers, welcome dear students to the channel of Dr. Mirza Shahid Beg Educational Channel. Here we are looking after the series of drug chapters which are acting on the heart, and we have gone through various chapters. You have seen the videos, and if you have not seen or not gone through the videos, you first go through all the videos, you subscribe to the channel. So today's topic of our discussion is congestive heart failure. Okay, as the name indicate, congestive. Okay, so there is a congestion in the heart to pump the blood properly, which will provide or make up the need of the metabolizing cells of the body or working of the body, you can say. So as you know very well that heart is the king of your body, and it works continuously and it works efficiently so that the person is living a healthy life. If it gets disturbed, if it is not working properly, or some part of the heart is not working properly, that will affect or reflect on your whole body, because it is related to the blood circulation. So if your heart is not pumping properly, it will not provide the blood properly to your body, and the cells get affected, organs get affected. So it's a very important one. So what happened in this condition, we will see in the detailed way in this video. So what happened in this condition is your heart is unable to work properly, to pump properly, or the cells of the heart is not having proper functioning. So due to which what happens, the ejection of the blood, the pumping of the blood is getting affected, and due to which many secondary diseases get arises, like the most critical one, like the pulmonary edema is occurring due to this condition. Plus kidneys are getting affected, which is sometimes leading to the kidney failure also. Your liver is getting affected, your each and every organ, even the brain is getting affected, because it is not getting enough blood to work properly. So this is the condition where your heart cells, or especially the ventricles, are not contracting properly, and due to which the blood is not provided in the required amount to the body, you can say. So this is a condition which is a very critical condition. It becomes when it progress, it is actually a progressive condition. But when it goes to a drastic condition, or you can say the critical condition, the person may die due to this congestive heart failure also. So in this video we will put the stress, we will try to understand this condition, we will try to have the different types of the congestive heart failures, then the drug treatment in this condition. The four major types we have divided, so we'll see each and everything in a detailed way. Even we will put the stress on major drugs, especially the cardiac glycosides, which are very potent drugs, you can say, and narrow therapeutic index drugs, you can say, but they are life-saving drugs. We will see the detailed way of the cardiac glycosides. Then we will see natriuretic drugs, how this new emerging drugs are used, coming in the use for congestive heart failure. Then we use the endothelial receptor antagonists. These drugs are also new drugs which are coming for the treatment. So depending upon the condition, how the drug treatment is there, how we can save the life of a person, you can say, in congestive heart failure, that we will look on in the whole video. So first we will go towards understanding what is congestive heart failure. So cardiac failure, you can use the word as a synonym for congestive heart failure, or CHF in the small form also you can use. Cardiac failure also you can call it as, or heart failure also you can. So all these words are same, for use for the same condition, you can say. So here cardiac failure can be described as the inability of the heart to pump the blood effectively at the rate that meets the need of metabolizing tissues. This is the direct result of reduced contractility of the heart muscles, especially those of the ventricles, which causes a decrease in cardiac output, increasing the blood volume of the heart, hence the term called as congested. Okay, as the heart in the heart the blood is continuously filling up, okay, it becomes a bulgy, you can say, or we give the example of a balloon also for understanding this condition, that when you fill the balloon it gets stretched. Okay, it gets stretched, it gets bulgy, you can say, and it is like a sponge it become. So the same thing is with the heart, because normal heart, if you see, it is regularly contracting and relaxing. Okay, systolic and diastolic we have already seen in the previous videos. So this is what the condition which is required for normal heart working. Okay, it should be contract properly and it should be relaxed. When it contract, it eject the blood which is given to all over the body cells, you can say, and when it gets relaxed, the blood fills into the heart, so that again it is ready for the ejection, you can. So this is continuous process. When you sleep also this is what going on. But what happened in this CHF, that the heart unable to contract properly or completely, you can say, and the blood is continuously coming on to the heart, so that makes a critical condition or disturbance in the heart functioning, you can say. So this is a condition called as the congestive heart failure. As a result, a systemic blood pressure and the renal blood flow are both reduced, which often lead to the development of edema in the lower extremities and the lungs, the pulmonary edema, as well as the renal failure. Just now we have talked of in the introductory part also. A group of drugs known as cardiac glycoside were found to reverse most of these symptoms and complications. Okay, so these are the drug treatment in the congestive heart failure, they are all overcoming the symptoms. Okay, the edema or fluid retention in the body or various complications we will see in the further slides of the video also, you can say. So these drugs, they overcome the symptoms. Okay, they are not removing this condition from root, you can say, but it is overcoming the drastic or the critical conditions or secondary generated effects in the body, you can say, so that it is overcoming the things and normalizing the person life, you can state. Okay, next we go for types of heart failure. Okay, as just now we have stated that your heart is made up of the various chambers. Okay, the atrias are there, or ventricles are there, or the systolic and diastolic process is there, you can say. So which function is getting affected? So on the basis of that, we have divided our types of heart failures into 4 types. Okay, so the first column is of the type of heart failure and the description related to it, that what happens in that heart failure. Okay, so depending upon the things, we choose the drugs also, we have the treatment also, and depending on which the combination therapies are also preferred, you can say. So we should know about the types of heart failure also. So the first one is left-sided heart failure. Okay, so left-sided heart failure, the fluid may back up in your lungs, causing shortness of the breath. Okay, so the left side of your heart, if it is getting not working properly, you can say, so in that condition what happens, the fluid which is going to the lungs, okay, that means the blood flow to the lungs, it is shortage in that thing, and the fluid is start accumulating in your lungs, you can say. As the lungs is getting fluid, more fluid, you can say, as we have discussed in the previous videos also, that this is a very critical condition. Okay, when the fluid gets start accumulating in the lungs, the pulmonary edema occurs, where the microbial growths also start taking place in that fluid, and due to which the fever is there, pneumonia may occur, or various things are there. And the last case is that as the fluid is increasing, the person is unable to breathe properly. So what we do, we apply the ventilator. Okay, forcefully we are giving the oxygen to the person, you can say, so that he can have a normal breathe and he get the oxygenated blood, you can say, or oxygen level of the blood get increases and the body normalize the functioning. So this is regarding the left sided heart failure. This is a condition which may become critical in the last stages also, you can state. Next is right sided heart failure. So what happens when the right side of the heart is getting the heart failure, you can say, the fluid may back up into your abdomen, legs and feet, causing swelling. Okay, so the swelling starts occurring on the body. Okay, especially at the lower part of your body, that is abdomen, legs and feet, the fluid is getting accumulated. You can just touch your feet, you can say, it will make a hole type of the effect on the skin. This is a testing also for the edema. So you can clearly see that the fluid deposition on the body of the patient of right sided heart failure. Next is the systolic heart failure. Okay, so the left ventricles can't contract vigorously, indicating a pumping problem. Okay, so systolic, as we indicated in the previous videos also, we have seen in the blood pressure, systolic and diastolic blood pressure. So systolic is when your heart is contracting and ejecting the blood, you can say. So there, the systolic heart failure, that is a left ventricle, which is a major part of your heart, you can consider. So the left ventricles can't contract vigorously, okay, or completely also, you can use the word, indicating a pumping problem. Okay, so this is what happening in the systolic. This is called as the systolic heart failure. Next is the diastolic heart failure. Okay, also called the heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. Okay, the left ventricle can't relax or fill properly, you can say, indicating a filling problem. Okay, so ejecting problem, that is systolic we have seen, and diastolic is where the blood is filling into the heart. Okay, and in this case of diastolic heart failure, the blood when comes to the heart, it is not filling properly. The ventricles are not relaxing properly because the heart cells become stiff or even scar due to the various condition. We will see the causes also of different heart failures, you can say. So here these are the 4 types you should remember, that what happens, it is not such that the complete heart is getting the things, you can say. Sometimes it is left sided heart failure, sometimes it is right sided heart failure, or systolic heart failure and the diastolic heart failure. And what happens when this heart failure occurs, you can have the description also, and you can remember the types of heart failure. Next we go for causes of heart failure. Now the causes, that how it occurs, okay, how it get generated or how it gets started, you can say. So any condition that damages the heart muscles can cause the systolic heart failure. This condition include mainly the coronary. First one is the coronary artery disease. The coronary artery disease or artery supplies the heart muscles with blood. If this become blocked or narrowed, the flow of blood reduces and the heart does not receive the blood supply that it needs. Okay, especially when this is the condition when the atherosclerosis occurs. Okay, the blockage is there. Okay, or spasm occurs. Okay, we have seen this in the anti-angina video also. So this is how the coronary artery diseases lead to the decreased blood supply, due to which the condition gets arises. Next is the heart attack condition, second one. Okay, so the heart attack or angina pectoris, okay, already we have seen in the normal word, we called it as a heart attack. A sudden blockage of the coronary arteries causes scarring in the heart tissues and decreases how effectively it can pump. Okay, so when the person or the patient get a heart attack, okay, severe heart attack we called, or mild heart attack is there, but is progressive, you can say. very critical condition, okay, where there is an intense pain in the chest and your heart cells getting affected, or scarring word is there where the cells get affected, you can say, and which are not working properly. So severe heart attack, if it occurs, that is a life and death case is there when the patient gets saved, but it leads to the damage to the heart cells, due to which the congestive heart failure arises in the patient. Okay, next is non-ischemic cardiomyopathy. Okay, non-ischemic in the sense when the blood flow is proper. Okay, ischemic means there is a decreased blood flow, but it is non-ischemic when the blood flow is normal, you can say, but then also the cardiac congestive heart failure occurs. So how it is there? This disease involve weakness of the heart muscles due to causes other than the blockage in the coronary arteries. Possibly cause include a genetic condition, drug side effect, and infection. Okay, so here the genetic condition means any by birth the congenital diseases are there, or genetic effect is there on the heart cells, you can say, which are making it weak, etc. Or drug side effect, many drugs are there which are having a potent effect on the heart damage or heart cells getting damaged, you can say, that is cardiomyopathy. Okay, and infections, viral infections are also there which are affecting your heart working, you can say. So this is how non-ischemic cardiomyopathy causes are also there to increase or to lead the congestive heart failure. Next is a condition that overwork the heart. Okay, example include valve diseases, hypertension, high blood pressure, diabetes, kidney diseases, and heart abnormalities present at the birth. Okay, so here the valve diseases, okay, that is the condition that overwork the heart. Okay, the load gets increases on the heart, you can say. So valve diseases like, for example, the calcium deposition, calcium oxalate crystals on the bicuspid or tricuspid valve, which is affecting the blood flow from atria to ventricles, you can consider. Okay, so that leads to the overwork on the heart or workload on the heart, you can say. So that leads to a condition called congestive heart failure. Hypertension, of course, okay, the blood pressure, as we have seen in the antihypertensive chapter. So hypertension, if shoot up to 200 or 240 by 100, you can say it's a very critical condition. So that damages the cells of the heart, you can say, and overwork or overload on the heart gets increases due to the increase in the blood pressure of the body. Diabetes, of course, it is a very critical disease condition which is damaging each and every organ of your body. We call it as a slow poison. Okay, so this disease, diabetes, okay, so that is also affecting your heart and leading to the later cases of your life to the congestive heart failure. Kidney diseases and heart abnormalities which are present at the birth, you can say. So that these are the problems, or these are the factors which causes the congestive heart failure. It is what arises in the patient, you can say. Next we go for the symptoms of congestive heart failure. For what happens in the patient, okay, so heart failure can be ongoing, that is chronic one, or your condition may start suddenly, acute, we call it as a acute heart failure. Okay, heart failure signs and symptoms may include shortness of breath, dyspnea, which when you exert yourself or when you lie down also. Okay, so as we have discussed just now, that the edema of your lungs or pulmonary edema, what we called, okay, if it gets started in the patient, okay, so it leads to the problem or shortness of the breath, you can say. Lack of appetite, nausea, fatigue, and weakness is there. Of course, these are the normal one which is related to the blood flow related effects are there. Swelling, edema in your legs, ankle and feet, these are the prominent sign of the CHF, you can see in the patient, you can say. Rapid or irregular heartbeat and reduced ability to exercise. Okay, so here the heartbeats gets affected as your heart is not pumping properly, it becomes stiff. you can say. So due to which the blood flow is affected, and due to which the cell working getting affected, you can say. That is why if you see the CHF person is not having the hard exercise also, okay, he gets exhausted, okay, he gets weakness, you can say. Even walking he can't do to a long distance, you can say, because the blood related problem, blood is not reaching, oxygen is not available to the cells, so cells become weak, and which is affecting to the physical activity of the patient also. Persistent cough or wheezing with white or pink blood tingle phlegm. Okay, this is related to the again the edema condition and all that, the infection related to the things. Increase need to urinate at the night, as the edema is there, or the fluid is getting accumulated. This is what, when the body is at the rest condition, even in the sleeping, okay, the patient is having the urination in this condition. Swelling of your abdomen aside and very rapid weight gain from the fluid retention. Okay, so here the abdomen part, as the blood is not reaching properly to the legs and all that, so the fluid is getting accumulated at that side, it is not circulating. Okay, meaning is to say that it is not circulating regularly with the blood. Okay, so that is why it is getting accumulated, and due to which the increase or very rapid weight gain is there due to the fluid retention. Next is difficulty concentrating or decreased alertness. Of course, you can correlate like this, that the blood flow to the brain is not proper, as the heart is not pumping to the full strength, you can say. So the blood is not reaching, which is affecting the brain cells for working, or concentration is getting affected due to the decrease, or alertness is not there in the patient, you can say, due to decreased blood flow, because the oxygen is not properly properly available in the brain cells. So that is how it is getting affected, you can say. Sudden severe shortness of breath and coughing up with the pink foamy mucus. This is related to the pulmonary edema, you can say, and infection related to it. Chest pain if your heart failure is caused by the heart attack. Of course, yes. This is the condition where the heart cells get damaged due to the heart attack condition. Okay, due to which continuous small slow pain is there if it is a chronic one, or intense pain may also occur if the higher part or larger part of the cells of the heart is getting affected, you can. Next is we can go for the classification of drugs in the treatment of CHF. See, we have divided the classification into 4 quadrants, and we have written the major classes also, where the subclasses drugs are also there. Okay, so in this video we put the stress mainly on the cardiac glycoside, natriuretic peptides, and one more class, endothelial receptor antagonist. So other drugs are also used, because the classification is such in this condition that depending upon the severity of the congestive heart failure and the condition or the symptoms to be elevated, okay, we choose the drugs. Okay, so depending on this, many classes are there we can have for the treatment. The first one is the diuretics. Okay, as the fluid accumulation is the major sign and symptoms of this congestive heart failure, the diuretics are of course very effective in controlling or normalizing the patient of this congestive heart failure. Here the thiazide diuretics, loop diuretics, and natriuretic peptide. We will see natriuretic peptide, neseritide, the drug, only one drug which is approved by FDA for the treatment. Okay, so we will have in the detail understanding of that. Other diuretic classes, you can refer to the video of diuretic video I have already uploaded. You can look on, or you can learn in the detailed way, you can understand how the diuretics work. So here in this condition also, in the congestive heart failure, these diuretics are very effective and normalizing the patient from the critical condition, you can say. Next is the vasodilators. Next class is vasodilators, so which dilate the arteries and veins. The angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors, ACE inhibitors you can have in the short form. Angiotensin receptor blockers, ARBs you can say. Direct acting arterial dilators, okay, hydralazine, diazoxide, which are the very important. Nitrodilators, nitro vasodilators also you can have. Natriuretic peptides, again they are having the vasodilatory effect in the body, so that they are again classified in this condition. They are having diuretic also and vasodilation also. Phosphodiesterase inhibitors. So all this drug of vasodilators, you might have gone through the antihypertensive video. You can go in the detailed way about all these classes, and these classes, as they are vasodilatory effect, you can say, due to which the much blood flow to the peripheral part and all that, so they work efficiently to overcome the symptoms of the congestive heart failure. Next, third one is cardiostimulatory or inotropic drugs, stimulate the contractility of the heart cells. The first and the major one, digitalis related drug, or digitalis class of drug also you can say. We call it commonly as a cardiac glycosides. Okay, so these drugs are also very effective. Next is the beta blockers, sympathomimetic drugs, or phosphodiesterase inhibitors, which are having this cardiostimulatory. That means they increases the contractility of the heart cells and produces positive inotropic effect in the body. Next is cardio inhibitory. As we have already stated that depending upon the condition of the heart, we have to choose the drug or select the drug. Okay, so beta blockers are there, funny current blockers are there. Funny currents are the electrical currents which the pacemaker flows, you can say, from artery to ventricles. Okay, so they are called as the funny current blockers also there. Calcium channel blockers for diastolic dysfunctioning. We have already seen calcium channel blockers many times in antihypertensive, also in anti-angina, also in anti-arrhythmic also. You see all these videos, so you will be knowing about the effectivity or application of this calcium channel blockers. So these are the four major classes, okay, where they are having the subclasses also. So our stress in this video is mainly on the cardiac glycoside, natriuretic peptides, and endothelial receptor inhibitors. Okay, so directly we go for the first class now, that is cardiac glycoside. Okay, so this class is very important. Okay, it is very important in the sense it is having the various synonyms also. You can remember this class from their synonyms, because the questions are asked depending upon the synonyms also. If it is asked like write short notes on positive inotropic or cardiotonic drugs, you can say, so this is the major class where the cardiac glycosides occur. The synonyms used are cardiostimulatory drug, positive inotropic drug, cardiotonic drug, and even they are called as the life-saving drugs. Okay, so these are the various words which are used for cardiac glycosides. So what these drugs are? Cardiac glycosides are an important class of naturally occurring drugs, the action of which include both beneficial and toxic effect on the heart. Okay, beneficial and toxic effect, they are dose dependent. Okay, this effect is dose dependent, as we have used the word narrow therapeutic index drug. That means the effective dose and the toxic dose is very close. Okay, so that is why when cardiac glycosides are given to the patient, it has to be monitored. Okay, it should be given to the hospitalized person, hospitalized patient you can say, so that everything can be under supervision. Okay, the dose levels has to be calculated, or dose levels has to be monitored. You can say it should not go to a toxic level. So their desirable cardiotonic action is of particular benefit in the treatment of congestive heart failure and associated edema, and their preparations has been used as a medicinal agent as well as poisons since 1500 BC. See, these drugs are very old drugs in the treatment. Okay, many means in the olden days, the tribal peoples are using it for the hunting purpose. They used to apply the extract of the plant or animal skin secretions, you can say, where this cardiac glycosides are present. They apply to the arrow, okay, and they shoot up to the animal, where it goes to the heart of the animal, you can say, and paralysis, or you can say the heart block occurs, and they have easily hunting of the animal. For many other purpose also it is used. So there are very critical conditions of this use of the olden days, in the olden days, you can say, where the cardiac glycoside. But this dual application serves to highlight the potential of this class of life-saving drug. The therapeutic use of purified cardiac glycoside preparation has occurred only over the last century. So the application to save the life of a person is what started it from the last century itself. Okay. Now we go for further information regarding the cardiac glycoside. The cardiac glycosides are often called digitalis or digitalis glycoside because most of the drugs come from the digitalis foxglove plant. Okay, as you see in the figure also, okay, or in the photo also, that is digitalis purpurea plant. Okay, so if you see the leaves of that plant is like a foxglove, okay, they are called as, okay. The digitalis glycoside show only a small difference between the therapeutic effective dose and the dose that are toxic or even fatal. Therefore, the drug have a low therapeutic index. Okay, the most widely used agent is digoxin. The most widely used agent from this class is the digoxin. Digitalis compound in the heart failure produces positive inotropic effect. The upper arrow indicates the increase in the inotropic, that is the increased contraction of the myocardial cells. You can say that is what related to the increase inotropy, increase ejection fraction, decrease preload, and decrease the pulmonary congestion or edema. You can say these are the major effect of the cardiac glycoside you can consider. Next we go for digitalization therapy. Digitalization therapy, how the therapy has to be started. Okay, because as they are narrow therapeutic index drug, and if you see most of these drugs, they are having half-life, very high half-life. Some are having 60 hours, some are having 40 hours, you can say. So to have the blood levels, okay, of this drug to produce the beneficial or the good effect, because what happens when the drug is given, it is circulating into the body and even metabolizing and even excreting in the body. This continuous process is what going on. So we have to maintain the blood levels. For that, the initiation of the therapy, how it should be. Okay, so the initiation of the digoxin therapy has been divided into rapid and slow digitalization, which is called as the loading dose regimen, followed by the maintenance digoxin dose, and the proposed regimen vary considerably. See, this digitalis drugs are used for various purposes. It's not such that only in the congestive heart failure it is used. In the atrial flutter or atrial fibrillation or congestive heart failure also. For congestive heart failure, there is no need of the loading dose regimen. Okay, as we have stated that initiation of the therapy is the loading dose therapy and the maintenance therapy. In the loading dose therapy, we give the higher doses or concentration of the drug in the patient, which maintain the blood or which produces the required blood level of the drug, you can say. Then we give the small doses, that is called as the maintenance dose, to maintain the concentration of drug in the body. Okay, so this is how the loading dose regimen is divided into rapid and slow. The rapid digoxin loading dose or rapid digoxin loading therapy is the most rapid mean of digitalization is the intravenous route. We use an initial dose of 0.25 to 0.5 milligram of digoxin given over several minutes, followed by 0.25 milligram every 4 to 6 hours for a total of 3 to 4 doses. Okay, the intravenous digoxin begin to act in 15 to 30 minutes with a peak effect in 1 to 5 hours. Okay, rapid oral digitalization can be accomplished by giving 0.5 milligram initially, followed by 0.25 milligram or 0.5 milligram every 6 hours for a total of 3 to 4 doses. So here the rapid digoxin therapy can be divided into intravenous route as well as the oral route. So depending on the selection, okay, we use the different concentration of the drug you can consider. Next is slow digoxin therapy or slow digoxin loading dose or loading regimen. Slow oral digitalization can be achieved by starting a maintenance dose of 0.125 to 0.25 milligram daily. A steady state will be achieved after 5 cycles of the drug half-life, which is approximately 7 to 10 days in the average subject. Okay, so this is the slow one. As we required the the dose depending upon the condition of congestive heart failure, whether to go for rapid or slow. Okay, we select, or depending upon the condition of the patient, that is was selected by the doctor, you can say. Next is, this is regarding the loading dose, rapid and slow. Next is the maintenance dose. Now after that, for most patients, the maintenance dose of digoxin will be between 0.125 milligram and 0.25 milligram daily. The proper daily maintenance dose can be estimated from the product of total effective loading dose time, the percentage daily loss. Okay, here we have to maintain the thing, because continuously the drug is metabolizing, excreting from the body, you can say. So we have to maintain the blood level. Okay, so this is what we have to be very supervision is required, because the blood levels to be regularly checked. Otherwise they are low therapeutic index drug, and they may produce the toxicity also if blood level gets increases. So this should be in the monitoring phase, you can say, when you are giving the drug. Next is in the congestive heart failure, as we are dealing with the chapter of congestive heart failure. So as per the ACCF, that is American Society of the Cardiac Federation, you can say, or AHA, that is American Heart Association guidelines. Okay, a loading dose to initiate digoxin therapy in patient with heart failure is not necessary. Okay, so the association, that is ACCF, American Cardiac Academy, you can consider. Okay, so according to which it is not necessary the loading dose in the congestive heart failure. Okay, but the maintenance dose can be started like 0.125 to 0.25 milligram orally or IV once day or once per day, you can say. Use lower end of the dose 0.125 milligram per day in patient with impaired renal function or low lean body mass. Okay, so depending upon each and every condition like high kidney functioning and all that, we have to use or select the drug also. Next we go for the mechanism of action of cardiac glycoside, how it produces or how it overcome the condition, you can say. That means how it is increasing the contractility as the heart becomes stiff. Okay, and there is no proper contraction. Okay, so how this cardiac glycoside produces their effect. So digitalis compound are potent inhibitor of cellular sodium potassium ATPase pump. Okay, you can see in the figure also, in the lower down you can have the very good figure. You can draw this with the pencil in your examination and you can discuss. So they are inhibitors of sodium potassium ATPase pump. By inhibiting the sodium potassium ATPase pump, cardiac glycoside causes intracellular sodium concentration to increase. This is the first case when the sodium potassium ATPase pump is blocked. Okay, the sodium ions inside the cell get increases. Then what happened? This then lead to an accumulation of intracellular calcium via the sodium calcium exchange system. In the heart, increased intracellular calcium causes more calcium to be released by sarcoplasmic reticulum, thereby making more calcium available to bind to troponin C, which is an increased which increases the contractility. That is the positive inotropic effect. So what happened in this second step? The sodium which is becoming higher in the intracellular, it has to go out from intracellular to extracellular. So in exchange, what it do? It take up the calcium. Okay, sodium calcium channel exchange system get activated. Calcium comes inside the cell and sodium is going outside the cell. You can see from the figure also, as calcium is increasing in the intracellular, this calcium initiate the sarcoplasmic reticulum also to excrete or release more calcium. As the calcium increases higher in the intracellular cardiac cells, it binds to the troponin C, and troponin C is a natural vasodilator, you can consider. So it is blocking that troponin C, and it is producing the positive inotropic effect. Okay, so this is how the heart cells, especially of the myocardium, it is getting more contracted. Okay, so the complete contraction of the heart is start beginning, and due to which the blood flow to the other part of the body, or ejection of the blood from the heart, is what getting increasing, you can say. So next, third part, which is the supportive mechanism to the upper one, the digitalis compound also increases the vagal efferent activity to the heart. This parasympathomimetic action of the digitalis reduces sinoatrial firing rate, decreases the heart rate, negative chronotropy, and reduces the conduction velocity of the electrical impulses through the AV node. That is the negative dromotropy, you can say. So as the heart cells, it is becoming stiff, they are not working properly, contracting properly, you can say. Half contracted, half remains relaxed, or some are contracting, some are. So this is what making them regularize, or you can say channelizing to the normal working. So this is how the mechanism of the cardiac glycoside, which are the potent drug, which are the life-saving drug, they are increasing the contraction of the myocardial properly, or to the full strength, you can say, so that the heart is contracting and relaxing to its need or normal way, and regularizing the congestive heart failure. Next we go for the chemistry of cardiac glycoside, as these are the very important drug. So the chemistry of this cardiac glycoside is also an important one. Okay, so the cardiac glycoside and other similar glycosides are composed of two portions, the sugar moiety and the non-sugar moiety, which we called it as a glycon moiety, or steroidal nucleus. Okay, so our chemistry, for our convenience, okay, for the complete and efficient chemistry of cardiac glycoside, we have divided it into under three headings. So the chemistry of cardiac glycosides are discussed under three headings. First is sugar part, second is A-glycon part, and third is lactone ring at C17. So these are the important parts of the cardiac glycoside. The chemistry is very important role it plays for the mechanism of action also, and for saving the life of a person also. So one by one we can go for the chemistry discussion. You can see the figure below, that it is having the A ring, B ring, C ring, and D ring. D ring is a 5-membered ring, you can say. At third position, the sugars are attached. At 14th position, the hydroxy group is there, which is unsubstituted, which remains unsubstituted. And at the 7th position, R group, which is leading to, or which is designating to the lactone ring, which is present at the C17 position, you can say. So one by one we can go for our discussion of the chemistry. The first one, we can go for the chemistry of sugar moiety. Okay, how should be the sugar moiety, or what is the role of sugar moiety in the structure? Okay, or how, which type of the sugar to be attached for its glycosidic effect, you can say, or cardiac glycoside effect in the congestive heart failure. The hydroxy group at 3rd position of the A glycon, okay, is conjugated to a monosaccharide or polysaccharide with beta 1,4 glucosidic linkages. Okay, so we have seen in the previous slide at the 3rd position, okay, where the sugars are attached to the OH group. Okay, so this are monosaccharide or polysaccharide, and most probably they are beta 1,4 glucosidic linkage. See, many nationalized exams, okay, they ask the MCQ questions on the chemistry of the cardiac glycoside. Many questions you can crack out from this video, you can say, and you can prepare yourself for the nationalized exam also, and for the university exam also, where many MCQs questions are asked. So one of the nationalized exam has already been asked that the sugar moieties are present in dash linkages. Okay, so beta 1,4 glucosidic linkages you can remember here. Okay, the most commonly found sugar in the cardiac glycoside are D-glucose, D-digitoxose, L-rhamnose, okay, and D-samarose. Okay, so these are the drugs which are made which is consisting of the sugar moieties, and you can see the structures, okay, of all the sugar moieties. You can practice out the structure. Okay, beta D-digitoxose is there, beta D-glucose is there, beta L-rhamnose is there, beta D-samarose is there. So you can remember, because these sugars are present in the units. Okay, some are present 3 units, 2 units of different glycosides. So here you can practice out the structure also. These sugars exist predominantly in the cardiac glycoside in the beta conformation. Okay, this is also an important MCQ. You can take the note of that. They are always present in the beta conformation. Okay, the number and identity of sugars vary from one glycoside to another. Just now we have stated the number of units vary from one to other. Okay, in some cases this sugar exists in the acetylated form. The presence of an O-acetyl group on a sugar greatly affect the lipophilic characters and pharmacokinetics of the entire glycoside. Okay, so this sugar moieties are having the important influence on the pharmacokinetics of the drug, how it perform. Okay, we will see one of the slide we have taken of digoxin and digitoxin comparison. We will see in the later cases, where you can see the different sugar moieties present in this drug. So this is the chemistry which is required for the activity of cardiac glycoside. Next is the chemistry of A glycon moiety. Okay, A glycon part we have seen, it is also a steroidal nucleus. Okay, as this is having the steroid nucleus, you can say, but it is different from the other steroids, other steroidal drugs. Okay, so this is a completely different one, because it is having the sugar, it is having the lactone ring at the 17th position. Okay, and the conformation also, how it is present. The A-glycon portion of the cardiac glycoside is steroidal nucleus with a unique set of fused rings, which make this agent easily distinguished from other steroids. Okay, the makeup or the conformation or stereochemistry of this steroid, okay, it is different from the other, you can say. Like for example, ring A, B and C, D, they are cis fused, okay, whereas ring B and C have a trans configuration. Okay, if you see, this is clearly indicated by the 8 hydrogen atom. If you see, it is rigid form, and dotted hydrogen atom at the ninth position, if you see, that makes the transposition of B and C ring. Okay, such ring fusion gives the A glycon nucleus of cardiac glycoside the characteristic U shaped. Okay, it is regarding the conformation, you can say. The steroidal nucleus also carries in most cases two angular methyl group at C10 and C13. Okay, this is the specialty at the C10. If you see, it is having the beta methyl group. Okay, and at the C13, okay, if you see at the C13 also, you are beside 12, that is 13, C13 again in the beta configuration, it is having the CH3 group. Okay, so this is specialty, this is configuration stereochemistry of the cardiac glycoside A glycon part, and this is how what is happening. Next we go for the hydroxyl group present in the structure. Hydroxyl groups are located at C3, the site of the sugar attachment, and the C14 hydroxy is normally unsubstituted. As we have seen, it should not be substituted for activity, you can say. However, additional hydroxy group can be found at C12 and C16. At C12, if you see decoxygenin, okay, that is at the C12 you are having the beta hydroxy group attached. Okay, and C16, if you see getoxygenin, it is having again beta hydroxy group present in the structure. The presence or absence of hydroxy group distinguishes the important difference in the genins digitoxygenin, decoxygenin, and getoxygenin. Okay, so this is how this hydroxy group plays a very important role. This additional hydroxy group has significant impact on the partitioning and pharmacokinetics of the glycoside, or for each glycoside again. So that makes the difference, the number of hydroxy group present. Okay, that makes the absorption pattern or elimination pattern or metabolizing each and everything, the pharmacokinetics getting affected due to the hydroxy group, you can. The last part of cardiac glycoside chemistry is the lactone part. Okay, so the chemistry of lactone at C17. This makes a difference, you can say, where the naturally occurring cardiac glycoside, whether they are from the plant source or from the animal source, because they are having the different lactone ring system in the structure. The lactone ring at C17 is another major structural feature of the cardiac glycon. The size and degree of unsaturation of the lactone ring vary with the sources of glycoside. Okay, so in most cases the cardiac glycoside of plant origin, also called cardenolites, the cardiac glycoside which we get from the plants, they are the cardenolites, they are called as the cardenolites, possess a 5-membered alpha beta lactone ring. Okay, so they are alpha beta unsaturated 5-membered lactone ring is there, which is a specialty of the cardenolites. Okay, whereas those derived from animal source, the bufadinolites, okay, possess a 6-membered lactone ring with 2 conjugated double bonds. Okay, usually referred to as a pyrrole ring. Okay, so this is the specialty of the animals like toad, the skin secretion of the toad, which is toxic in nature, but it is in the diluted form, it is used for as a in the congestive heart failure. So they are called as the bufadinolites. Okay, so you can see the structure of cardenolite at R position R dash, which is written in the 5-membered lactone, which is having only one unsaturation in the ring, you can say, which is called as cardenolite. But if you see the bufadinolite, okay, the R dash position at C17, it is a 6-membered lactone ring with two unsaturations. So this is how the MCQ questions you can crack out or you can remember for the lactone ring in the chemistry of congestive means cardiac glycoside for congestive heart failure. Next we go for the naturally occurring cardiac glycosides and their sources. Okay, this table is what giving the information regarding the types of the cardiac glycoside used plus how they can get from the natural sources like digitalis lanata leaves from leaves you get lanatoside A, B and C. Okay, O-glycan part is also given digitoxygenin, gitoxygenin and decoxygenin. If you see the sugar moieties, glucose 3-acetyl digitoxose and 3 units of digitoxose are there. So this is regarding the lanatosides, okay, where you can get it from digitalis lanata leaves, digitalis purpurea leaf, purpurea glycoside A, which is also called as acetyl digityllanite A, okay, purpurea glycoside B, acetyl digityllanite B, okay. This the A-glycan part digitoxygenin and gitoxygenin, where you are having the glucose sugar moieties, glucose and 3 units of digitoxose. Next is Strophanthus gratus. The seeds are used where G is strophanthine, aubergine and rhamnose is a sugar. Okay, Strophanthus combis seeds, K strophanthocytes or strophanthidine glycan part, and if you see the sugar part, if you see 2 units of glucose and saccharose is present. You can crack many MCQs from this table regarding the sources, regarding the A-glycan part or regarding the sugar moiety also, okay, which type of sugars are present. Okay, so this is the important one slide for the preparation. Next is the structures. You can practice out the structures in medicinal chemistry. You have to draw the structures of the main drugs we have taken, like with sugar moieties attached with the units, you can say, and lactone rings which are attached at C17 and hydroxy groups which are present. Lanatoside A structure, you can have digitoxin structure is there, decoxin, which is an important drug. OBN drug is also there, you can practice out the thing, and K strophantidine. Okay, so this is how 4 to 5 structures you can practice out for your answer to support in the exams, and you can practice out the thing. The comparison of pharmacokinetic properties of decoxin and digitoxin. This is how we can compare the two drugs, okay, because they are different in the hydroxy groups present in the structure and how they behave. First, we have taken the GI absorption, gastrointestinal absorption. Okay, decoxin, if you see, 70 to 85%, and digitoxin, if you see, it is 95 to 100% absorbed from the GI tract. Average half-life 1 to 2 days of decoxin, but 5 to 7 days of digitoxin. Protein binding 25 to 30%, but if you see digitoxin is highly protein bound, 90 to 95%. So what you can say that the digitoxin is highly protein bound drug as compared to the decoxin. Okay. Next is enterohepatic cycling. Decoxin undergoes only 5%, but digitoxin is going 25%. Excretion decoxin mainly by kidneys, largely unchanged, but the digitoxin liver metabolism, that is in the biliary secretion, it is what having the higher excretion, you can say. Therapeutic plasma level 0.5 to 2.5 nanogram per ml, but digitoxin 20 to 35 nanogram per ml, you can say. Digitalizing dose oral 0.75 to 1.5 milligram per ml, IV 0.5 to 1 milligram you can consider, okay, for decoxin. For digitoxin, oral is 0.8 to 1.2 and IV 0.8 to 1.2. Okay, maintenance dose oral in milligram 0.125 to 0.5 milligram and 0.005 to 0.2 milligram for digitoxin, you can say. So this is how this comparison specially taken because many questions are asked, MCQ questions are asked regarding the protein binding or comparison, or give the comparison between digoxin and digitoxin. So you can learn out that how this drug perform differently, very differently, you can say, between in the body of a patient, and depending on which, as the requirement is there, we can select the drug. As far as we have already stated that digoxin is the most important drug which is widely used in this condition. Next we go for the side effects of cardiac glycoside. Cardiac glycoside has a narrow therapeutic index drug where the small difference in dose or blood concentration may lead to dose and blood concentration dependent serious therapeutic failure or adverse drug reactions. Okay, they are dose dependent. The cardiac glycosides have many side effects that are largely dose related and require careful monitoring of drug level. The most common side effects include dizziness, fatigue, headache, anxiety, intestinal upset, changes in the taste, and blurred vision. These are the common one where when the therapy gets started or cardiac glycoside, the patient is exhibiting or showing up the side effects, you can say. But the severe side effect, which include the toxicity, higher doses in the body, you can say, the seizure in coma, heart block, arterial and ventricular arrhythmia, and sudden cardiac death also. Okay, so this drug has to be very precautiously been used under monitoring condition, you can say, or supervision of the specialized doctors, you can say, to avoid the drastic effect of the drug, due to which the patient may die also. Okay, so this is how the side effects of cardiac glycoside. Now we are going to have the drug interactions, some drug interactions of cardiac glycoside. Digoxin drug interactions are commonly causes of the digitalis toxicity. The class 1A antiarrhythmic drugs, especially the quinidine, compete with the digoxin for binding sites and depresses renal clearance of the digoxin, you can say. So quinidine is interfering with the renal clearance. They should not be given in the combination, you can say. Concurrent use of cardiac glycoside with antiarrhythmic, sympathomimetic, beta adrenergic blocker, and calcium channel blocker lead to the toxicity. Okay, because this all are affecting the mechanism of action of the cardiac glycoside. Okay, and which is affecting its blood level also. So this is how it produces the toxicity. Laxatives and cholestyramine. Okay, that is the resin which we have studied in the anti-lipidemic video. So the laxatives and cholestyramine resin decreases the intestinal absorption of cardiac glycoside. Okay, because they attaches to the cardiac glycoside, they forms the chelate, that we call it as a sequestrants. Okay, so they avoid the intestinal absorption or decreases the intestinal absorption of the cardiac glycoside. Next is antacids. Antacids, especially magnesium trisilicate, and antidiarrheal absorbents. Okay, antidiarrheal absorbent like kaolin is there, or sodium carbonate is there, which are given in the suspension form, can also inhibit the absorption of digoxins. They may form the chelate or the complex formation. Potassium depleting diuretics such as thiazide can increase the possibility of digitalis toxicity because of the additive hypokalemia. Okay, the hypokalemia may occur when the potassium depleting diuretics like thiazide diuretic are given in combination with the digitalis drug, you can say, and this is what creating a very drastic condition. Plasma protein binding drugs such as thyroid hormone have the potential to displace digoxin from its plasma binding sites, thereby increasing its free drug concentration to a toxic level. Okay, the plasma protein binding drug, okay, if the drugs are having a higher affinity for the plasma protein, they displace the cardiac glycoside from its binding site. As we have seen that digitalis is 90 to 95% protein bound drug. So when any other drug like phenylbutazone or thyroid hormone especially, when it given, okay, they get displaced, or it gets displaced the cardiac glycoside and produces the toxic level of the body, you can say. So these are the various drug interaction with class 1A drugs or laxative or resins or antacids. You can remember potassium depleting diuretics, even the thyroid hormones when the patient is receiving. So these are all you can remember the drug interactions or possible drug interactions of the cardiac glycosides. Okay, now we go for the second class. This is up till now we are looking after the cardiac glycoside, which is a very important topic for in the congestive heart failure, because in the very critical conditions, okay, this drug save the life of a person. So you should be having awareness, or you should be knowing well about this drug regarding the mechanism of action, regarding the chemistry of this drug, side effects, even the drug interaction, each and every part, you can say, which will be helpful for your examinations also and for your nationalized exam preparation also. Many MCQs you can crack from each and every slide or from this video, you can say. Next we go for natriuretic peptide, necessitide, the drug which is present. So first of all, we will look on what are natriuretic peptides. Okay, natriuretic peptides, we use the short form as NP. Okay, NPs are peptide hormone that are synthesized by the heart, brain and other organ. Their formation in the heart is stimulated by the cardiac chamber distension, angiotensin 2, endothelin and sympathetic nerve activity, beta adrenoceptor mediated. Okay, so these are especially the peptide hormones, and they are secreted in the distension for when created in the heart cardiac cells, you can say. So we will see what are the different types of this natriuretic peptide. Okay, we will see why the name is given to it as a natriuretic peptide also. So first we look on the type of natriuretic peptides. So there are two classification we have done, or two types we have put forward. That is, one is ANP and second is BNP. So what is this ANP and BNP? So arterial natriuretic peptide is a 28 amino acid peptide. Remember the number also, 28 amino acid peptide, that is synthesized, stored and released by the arterial myocytes. Okay, therefore elevated level of ANP, that is arterial natriuretic peptide, are found during hypervolemic state, that is the elevated blood volume, and congestive heart failure. So this is ANP, which is formed by the arterial myocytes. Okay, and it is 28 amino acid, you can say, and what role it plays, that we will see in the mechanism of action. Next type is brain type natriuretic peptide. Okay, BNP is a 32 amino acid peptide. Okay, remember the number, 32 amino acid peptide, although first identified in the brain, is primarily produced by ventricular tissues in the heart, and like ANP there is enhanced synthesis and release of BNP during heart failure. Okay, as this first identified from the brain, you can say, that is why the name is given to this peptide as brain type natriuretic peptide. Okay, so these are the two types of natriuretic peptide. Now we see how they are formed in the body, how they are getting generated in the body, you can say. Formation occur in cardiomyocytes from larger peptide precursor pre-pro-NP and pro-NP. You can see the diagram. Okay, you can see the figure where step by step the formation is what shown, so that you can remember very easily, and you can draw this diagram in the examination also. After release by the cells, these NPs circulate to their target tissue, where they bind to NPRA receptor, that is natriuretic peptide receptor A. Okay, that are linked to guanylyl cyclase and the formation of CGMP. Okay, you can see in the figure, very easily and very nicely given. Okay, so cGMP gets increasing, which is producing the vasodilation. Neutral endopeptidase, that is neprilysin. Okay, neprilysin is a circulating enzyme that degrade natriuretic peptide. Therefore, inhibition of this enzyme increases circulating level of NPs and potentiate their effect. Okay, so this is another way of research where the enzyme inhibitors are developing for neprilysin, which is having the degradation of natriuretic peptide, you can say. So this is how it is formed from the chamber, or you can say the cardiomyocytes, you can say, of cardiac cells, pre-pro to pro-NP to NP, which bind to NPRA receptor, which initiate or are linked to the guanylyl cyclase, which convert the GTP to cGMP, which is a vasodilator. Okay, so this normal formation in the body. Now the mechanism of action, what it do, this natriuretic peptide. Natriuretic peptide are involved in long-term regulation of sodium and water balance, blood volume and arterial pressure. As they are having the regulation of sodium, that is natri word is used, and uresis, okay, that means, and water balance, okay, diuretic, like diuretic. Okay, so it is excreting more the sodium and water from the body. That is why the name is given to them as a natriuretic peptide. Okay, so natriuretic peptides serve as a counter regulatory system for the renin angiotensin aldosterone system. Okay, so natriuresis, they produces natriuresis. Okay, that is a increased excretion of sodium. Diuresis, the increased excretion of water or fluid from the body. Improve glomerular filtration rate and filtration fraction. Okay, as the vasodilation it produces, so the much blood reaches to the kidneys, which increases or improve the glomerular filtration rate and filtration fraction also. Inhibit the renin release, decreases the circulating angiotensin 2 as well as decreases circulating aldosterone, you can say, which is an antidiuretic hormone. Systemic vasodilator, arterial hypotension, reduce venous pressure, okay, reduce pulmonary capillary wedge pressure, okay, which is called as in the small form as PCWP. Okay, the primary use of natriuretic peptide in the heart failure is to reduce pulmonary and or systemic congestion and edema and associated clinical systems, example shortness of breath, dyspnea. Natriuretic peptide may also reduce the afterload on the heart by promoting systemic vasodilation, which can lead to improved ventricular ejection. Okay, this is all the new emerging class of natriuretic peptide is very essential and very helpful in the selected cases, not all the cases, you can say. So selected cases it may be used for the treatment. The drug which is from the class of natriuretic peptide is neseritide. Okay, so neseritide drug recombinant human BNP, that is a brain natriuretic peptide, or neseritide, you can say 32 amino acids. Okay, remember the word number 32 amino acid is approved for use in the treatment of acute decompensate congestive heart failure caused by systolic dysfunctioning. Okay, so it is very effective in the decompensate CHF. As a peptide, neseritide has a poor bioavailability and therefore is only available for intravenous administration. This drug neseritide is given by the intravenous administration with a short half-life of less than 20 minutes. Okay, it is administered as continuous infusion following a bolus injection. Okay, so it is in the continuous infusion it is given along with the saline and all that. So the blood levels to be maintained in the body. This drug is very effective in reducing pulmonary capillary wedge pressure and improving dyspnea in this population of the patient. So the patients where the pulmonary edema starts occurring, or asthmatic patient is there, or means the complication related to the pulmonary system is there. This drug is coming as a useful drug for overcoming the things. The structure you can remember, as we have stated, 32 amino acids. So the main features of the structure is you can have the upper arm or upper structure, the serine edge group is there. Now coming on to the below one, that is cysteine is having the cross link. You can have, or bridge you can have, cysteine to cysteine, cross linking is there. And lastly the OH group, it is histidine having the OH group. So these are the main specialty of the structure for the necessitide drug. These are the important effects, as we have seen just now, that the natriuresis or diuresis, the renal effect is there, decrease fluid preload, diuretic usage, decrease in the preload is there. Next is the aldosterone system or endothelin and norepinephrine getting reduced. Sympathetic and neurohormonal system is also affected by the drug. Cardiac decrease preload, afterload, PCWP, just now we have seen, pulmonary capillary wedge pressure, okay, or dyspnea is what overcome. Cardiac index gets increases, that is hemodynamic, which is coming means bringing the heart to a normal functioning, you can say. So these are the various effect in the diagrammatic presentation you can remember for the necessitide drug, you can say. Next is the side effect and contraindication of necessitide. The most common, the most prevalent side effect of necessitide is hypotension, which can be long lasting. Therefore it is important to monitor arterial pressure during drug administration, okay, as it is a vasodilator, okay, it is a very potent drug, okay. So when this drug is given, the blood pressure has to be continuously monitored. Azotemia, an elevated blood level of urea or other nitrogen containing compound, can occur in patient with renal diseases in which kidney function depends on the activated renal angiotensin aldosterone system. So azotemia, that is the elevated blood level of urea, may occur in the patient when the kidneys are not functioning properly, you can say. So this is the condition. This drug should not be used in patient having cardiogenic shock or having systolic pressure less than 90 mmHg. Okay, so here the patient has to be, it is contraindicated in cardiogenic shock patient if it is occur in the sometime history in the patient, you can say, or the systolic pressure is going very low, you can say, that is 90 mmHg, you can say. So this drug should not be used in this condition, that is a contraindication. The last class of which we are targeting here in this video is the endothelin receptor antagonist. Okay, two drugs are there, bosentan and tazobactam. Okay, they are also the vasodilators. So what this endothelin is important to the body, and why we are inhibiting its receptor or the action of this endothelin. So first we look on understanding the endothelin. Endothelin 1, ET1, you can say, is a 21 amino acid peptide that is produced by vascular endothelium. Okay, this endothelin is again a peptide, 21 amino acid. Remember the number, 21 amino acid peptide that is produced by vascular endothelium. It is very potent vasoconstrictor that bind to the smooth cell endothelin receptor, of which there are two subtypes, ETA and ETB receptor. Okay, remember there are two receptors. This endothelin, when produced, it binds to the receptor. Two receptors are there, ETA and ETB receptor. AT1 receptor in the heart are also linked to the GQ protein and IP3 signal transduction pathway. Therefore, AT1 in the heart causes sarcoplasmic reticulum release of calcium, which increases the contractility. AT1 also increases the heart rate. Okay, so if you see the diagram in the heart cell, how it is producing the contraction. So the ET1 which is produced by the endothelium, it binds to the ETA and ETB receptor, which is GQ G protein coupled receptors, you can say, which is producing the IP3 signal transduction, which is producing the contraction, okay, which releases the sarcoplasmic reticulum, more calcium are released and contraction. So what happened in this, when it is produced and producing the vasoconstriction, the heart cells become stiff. Okay, they are not relaxing, okay, especially in the diastolic congestive heart failure we have seen in the types, you can say. So we have to relax that, okay. For that purpose, when that is the case, this endothelial receptor antagonists are used, you can say. Next is we can go for the first drug, that is bosentan drug. Bosentan non-selective AT1 receptor antagonist. That is why we are blocking this receptors, okay, so that the endothelin should not, AT1, that is AT1 should not produce the vasoconstrictory effect. So we give this drug which bind to this receptor. They are having higher affinity. Their chemical structure is such that they block the ETA and ETB receptors. Is currently used in the treatment of pulmonary hypertension, okay. Due to the continuous contraction, the the blood pressure of the lungs get increases and complications get started in the lungs, you can say. So we give this drug to block that receptors. Endothelin receptor antagonist, by blocking the vasoconstrictors and cardiotonic effect of ET1, produce vasodilation and cardiac inhibition. Endothelin receptor antagonists have been shown to decrease mortality and improve hemodynamics in the experimental model of the heart failure. Okay, so these drugs are the newer drugs which are coming into the treatment of congestive heart failure, and the selected cases or the selected condition are only used for in the congestive heart failure. This is the chemical structure of the drug. You can practice out the structure and you can have the drug profile. Next drug is tezosentan drug. Tezosentan is again a non-selective. It's a non-selective ETA and ETB receptor antagonist. It acts as a vasodilator and was designed as a therapy for patient with acute heart failure. Okay, this is a dual endothelin receptor antagonist that has been shown to improve cardiac output, decrease pulmonary capillary wedge pressure, and reduce pulmonary and systemic vascular resistance in initial clinical studies in acutely decompensated heart failure. Okay, recent studies have shown, however, that tezosentan does not improve dyspnea or reduce the risk of fatal or non-fatal cardiovascular events. So here again, these drugs are optional drugs, as we have stated, in the selected conditions only these drugs are utilized. So the chemical structure you can have, the practice, it seems to be a bigger structure, but practice makes the perfection. So you can practice out the structure for your answer and for your preparation for the exams. Side effect and contraindication of endothelin receptor antagonist. Some of the endothelin antagonist side effects are common to most vasodilator, namely headache, cutaneous flushing, hypotension, and edema formation. Okay, so as usual, the vasodilators are commonly having the side effect like headache is there, or continuous flushing. Okay, the continuous flushing means the blood flow to the outer areas of, or you can say the upper areas of the skin and all that. So it accumulate the blood there. So that is a cutaneous flushing. Hypotension, of course, due to vasodilation, and edema formation where the fluid starts accumulating. This class of drug may cause birth defect, and therefore is contraindicated in the pregnancy condition. Okay, so it should not be given in the pregnancy. It is contraindicated. This drug can also cause the liver injury. Okay, so these drugs are having various drastic effects in the body, so they are optional drugs especially, but when the condition is required, they may be used for the treatment of congestive heart failure. So here we end with our video. You like this video, you share to all the students, all the friends this video, so that they can be benefited and they can be preparing for their exams, for nationalized competitive exams. You can say even going for the interview, you can have look on these videos. Subscribe to the channel so that you can get more videos, knowledgeable videos related to the topics, and press bell icon so that you can get instant notification of recently uploaded videos, you can say. So for listening, thank you, and you can share all the videos so that others get benefited from that. So thank you very much.